to Trump's false claim of Haitian migrants eating.
All right, welcome to the WSJM Morning Show. I'm Ken Lundberg. Yeah, that's who I am. It's October 17th, and I have a special guest in the studio right now, Brad Byerle, who is here from Lake Michigan College. You're the director of the Police Academy.
I am. Thanks for having me.
You're absolutely welcome. No, this is fascinating. You're gracious enough to have me out there to LMC to tour the facility, to talk with me about what the Police Academy program is. And so I thought, this is a very long conversation. This is a good conversation, and there are a lot of aspects to it that we could perhaps inform listeners about what some of the things that are happening out there. So I said, Brad, come on in. Let's talk about this. And you were more than willing. So thank you.
Yeah, absolutely.
I appreciate that.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. What do you do when you're not police academying? What do you do for fun?
So
before we start the regular interview, come on up, get close and personal with the microphone.
So I do all sorts of things. I have a family, so they keep me fairly busy.
Oh, good.
I used to coach football. That kept me really busy.
Yeah.
But now my kids are growing older, and I'm not able to do that anymore.
Are you paying attention to the local football?
I am. Yeah. We follow the Lancers. My kids go to.
Oh,
Lake
I'm
Shore.
sorry.
Yeah, that's okay.
They won a game.
We did just win our last game. Hopefully we'll win the next one also.
That's great.
Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah. So I follow the Lancers. And that's all about it. We focus a lot on sports. My family likes to go to the gym, work out. So that's what we do outside of work.
Nice.
Yeah.
That's got to be a good release. Well, we appreciate you having you here. We're going to ask you a little bit about your background and a little bit on the background of the LMC Police Academy. When you were giving me the tour, I have to say I was a little disappointed when you showed me where the obstacle course was for the vehicles, because there were nothing but cars there, and we were not. It was at that moment I knew I was not going to have an opportunity to drive a car.
Well, I'll have you out again next summer.
I would love to do it. I mean, sign me up. I'll do janitorial services in exchange. I think it'll be fun.
Sure.
No, all right. We've got some news to talk about here in just a moment from the WSJM newsroom, and then we'll begin our interview with Brad Byerle. He's the director of the Police Academy out at Lake Michigan College. Am I getting your title right?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So good. We'll start that in just a moment right here on WSJM.
Fans of pop group One Direction singing after the death of former member Liam Payne. Police say the 31-year-old fell from a third-floor balcony. One of the fans outside, Rihanna Coutinho.
I can't explain how I'm feeling right now. I'm shaking. I'm really nervous. I can't believe what is happening right now.
Payne continued with a solo career after the band went on hiatus in 2016. He's survived by a son. Despite calls for clemency from dozens of lawmakers in Texas across the political spectrum, as well as doctors and judges, a man convicted in the death of his 2-year-old son is set to be put to death today.
This is Jim Ryan. Shaken baby syndrome has been largely discredited as junk science, and the Texas House Committee on Criminal Jurisprudence met yesterday to discuss Robert Roberson's conviction. As a strong supporter of the death penalty, committee member Brian Harrison says, nonetheless,
I think it is incumbent upon us to be the most vigilant in ensuring that innocent people are never subjected to it.
The committee voted unanimously to subpoena Roberson to appear at another hearing next Monday. He's to be put to death this evening. Jim Ryan, ABC News, Dallas.
Police in Tennessee now say FEMA workers trying to help victims of Hurricane Helene were harassed by people with guns. Nobody was hurt. And the TSA is advising people to leave their swords at home after stopping a woman at LaGuardia Airport with a samurai sword. I'm Brian Clark, ABC News.
Are not valid in all states or where prohibited by law. Loans are subject to lender approval. See website for details.
Meet Brian. He just got $5,000, and it was pretty easy. I'll tell you how in 10 seconds. Brian needed cash help. After being rejected by banks, he tried 27cash.com, told them how much he needed, even let them know he had bad credit. In minutes, 27cash.com found a lender who deposited $5,000 into his bank account the very next day. If you need cash help, even if you have bad credit, go to 27cash.com. 27cash.com.
WSJM News Now. Team coverage from the WSJM Newsroom on News Talk Sports 94.9 WSJM.
7:05 is the time. It is the 17th day of October. Look up in the sky. You can see the supermoon up there. It's very close to the Earth. It's as close as it gets during its orbit over the last 24 hours. And so you can take a look at it. It's beautiful. That's because we have some clear skies out there. That's bringing us a freeze warning. That's in effect until 9 o'clock this morning. Looking at the temperatures around the area of Southwest Michigan, 40 degrees in Benton Harbor, 44 in St. Joseph. So the lake obviously keeping us a little bit warmer. But you get around Buchanan, 33 degrees. Dowagiac, 33 degrees. Niles, 33 degrees. So it's a little chilly out there this morning. That could drop a couple more degrees before 9 o'clock. But otherwise, we're going to get sunny skies today, a high around 63 degrees, south winds 5 to 10 miles per hour. Tonight's forecast, clear, patchy frost, again possible, a low overnight around 38, south winds 5 miles per hour. And Friday, sunny skies, a high around 67, south winds 5 to 10 miles per hour. Quick look at the extended forecast. Saturday and Sunday, it's going to be mostly sunny. High around 70 or 72 degrees, and the lows are going to be in the lower 40s. So it's going to be a nice weekend. Some of the news that we're following from the WSJM newsroom, an 18-year-old from Paw Paw is facing charges in a sextortion case. Michigan State Police say Christian Andreas Crane was arraigned this week on several counts of first and third degree criminal sexual conduct with a victim between the ages of 13 and 15. Police say that becoming a victim of sextortion is a life-changing experience and should not be taken lightly. They're asking for the public to report any additional cases involving that same suspect. State police also tell parents to talk to their kids about the dangers of internet interactions and make sure they understand the implications of what they put online, how even compromising photos can wind up online for a very long time. The United Way of Southwest Michigan is making an urgent call for volunteers to rake leaves for seniors next month as part of its Rake a Difference event. United Way Volunteer Engagement Director Debbie Ramirez tells us they're short on the number of volunteers they need to take care of the demand.
We've got more than 1,000 who have signed up, which is awesome, but we have had a record number of seniors register this year and request help, so we need a record number of volunteers to offset that. We're probably between 300 and 500 volunteers short right now.
Ramirez says hundreds of seniors have signed up for Rake a Difference, and some might not be served on Rake a Difference Day, November 14th, if more volunteers don't come forward. Those who do help report they've had a very positive experience.
Volunteers are kind of enamored with the seniors. Like some of these seniors really go all out. There are seniors who give them snacks and make brownies and get them water, and they just really enjoy talking.
Ramirez says they especially need volunteer teams in these areas: Niles Buchanan, Watervliet Coloma, New Buffalo, South Haven, Cassopolis, and Dowagiac. And time is running out to sign up, the deadline being tomorrow, this Friday, by the end of the day. She invites everyone interested to register online. We have a link for that at our website. Again, it's the Southwest Michigan United Way. After years of discussion, the future of the Berrien County Jail is still undecided. Members of the Berrien County Board of Commission have talked about possible replacement of the facility, but they say the high cost of building a new jail has played a huge role in preventing any plan from moving forward. Berrien County Commissioner Rayante Bell was a guest on yesterday's WSJM morning show and told us repeatedly fixing up the old jail doesn't seem like the best use of resources.
We know that it's going to take some time to get us there to the point where we're constructing a new jail. I mean, one of the biggest hurdles is where we're going to get the money. Back when we first started having a real conversation about it, we knew that it was going to be over, $100 million upward to, $300 million to build a new jail.
And that cost has certainly gone up substantially, he says, since the pandemic. Bell also said priority one is making sure the current jail is safe for both inmates and the sheriff's department staff that work there. He does believe a conversation about the jail needs to be had sooner rather than later. He thinks one is looming. The county commission has discussed moving the jail to county property off Napier Avenue near the health department. That's just one of the many questions the body will have to ask. The board in July accepted a $200,000 state grant to study its options for the future of the jail. It's 7:10. This is the WSJM Morning Show. I'm Ken Lundberg. We've got a look at sports coming up in just a couple of minutes from Dave Wolf. We are on the video live stream right now with Facebook and YouTube, and we're getting ready to start an interview. In fact, let's start it right now. We've got Brad Byerle here from Lake Michigan College. He's the director of the Police Academy there, something that just restarted after years of not being around. So good morning, Brad. Thanks for joining us.
Yeah, good morning. Thanks for having me.
We appreciate having you in the studio here to talk about the police academy. And maybe just give us a brief overview before we switch over to the video live stream of who you are and a little bit about your background.
Yeah, sure. So I come from the east side of the state. I grew up in a little farming community called Fowlerville. I'm not sure if you've heard of it.
Okay.
About
Fowlerville.
It's about
Population?
It's a
few hundred, few thousand?
Yeah, it's about a similar size to Lakeshore Schools, actually, which is where we're at now.
Okay.
And so I grew up there for most of my life. I was a sheriff's deputy in Livingston County for 12 years.
Okay.
And at that time, right around year 10, I said, okay, I'm going to go back to school. I started at the county with no degree. So I worked as a corrections officer for about a year and a half. And the sheriff at the time was graciously enough to promote me to the road patrol and sent me to the police academy. I went to the Mid-Michigan Police Academy in Lansing. I did that, and I still didn't have a degree. So I went back, finished my associate degree at LCC also. I then finished my bachelor's degree at Ferris State in criminal justice. Took a year off because I was, at that time, I have a wife and 3 children, and I was working full time and going to school full time. Yeah. I took a year off. I was a little bit burnt out, but I said that that's still not the end. So I decided to go back to law school. I wasn't sure exactly why.
Yeah.
I said, I'm going to go back. I'm going to go to law school. I might be an attorney. I might teach. I'm not sure. And teaching is just kind of what I fell into. Right after I graduated from Cooley Law School, I started teaching part-time at the Mid-Michigan Police Academy. So it kind of came full circle. I was a part-time instructor there. And that's also the academy that I went to as a recruit. That kind of snowballed into a full-time position at Lansing Community College. So I taught criminal justice classes there for about 3 or 4 years before I finally moved out here to Southwest Michigan and took over the criminal justice program at Lake Michigan College.
Okay. And that from there on, Police Academy and more. So we'll be talking with Brad about that. We're going to start that interview right now on the video live stream. If you want to hear it, it's on Facebook or YouTube. Just go over to your platform of choice and type in WSJM and look for the live video. So we'll start that. We'll come back to that interview here on the radio as well. After a few minutes, we've got the sports from Dave Wolf. We'll also hear from Barry and Risa. Always Learning interview is coming up, but we're going to start the interview with Brad Byerle. He's the director of the Police Academy at Lake Michigan College right now.
Major League Baseball, Game 3 of the NLCS.
Sorry to stop you midstream there. That was good. Welcome again to the video live stream on the WSJM Morning Show. We're talking with Brad Byerle. He is the director of the Police Academy. So I want to unfold a couple of things. And by the way, you and I had a chance to meet. You gave me a tour of the Police Academy program at Lake Michigan College recently. Thank you for that again. And one of the things that you said is when you were going through your schooling, some of your education after you got your associate's degree, you were thinking about being an attorney.
Yeah.
Well, tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah. So
what attracted you to that attorney career?
Well, I knew that I wanted to continue with my education.
Yeah.
I just wasn't sure exactly what I wanted to do.
Okay.
And so I took the LSAT, the introductory test to get into law school.
Right.
I actually took it twice. The first time I took it, I knew that I was going to go to Cooley Law School if I was going to go, because they were going to work around my career and family schedule. Law school is fairly demanding, and they opened up night classes, weekend classes, so I could continue working and go to school at the same time.
Yeah.
And I got my LSAT score back. I can't even remember what it was at the time, but I do remember that it was enough to get me a 25% scholarship at Cooley. And I said, okay. I was also, though, 1 or 2 points away from adding an additional 10%. So I was like, I'm going to take it one more time.
Financing.
Financing,
okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I'm going to take the LSAT one more time. And if I get those additional 1 to 2 points, I'm going to go to school and get a 35% scholarship. So I studied hard, and I actually ended up getting significantly more points the second time around and ended up with a 60% scholarship. So I said, okay, that's, I guess I'm going to go at this point.
Yeah.
And I went through law school. I actually went and interviewed with a lot of big law firms over in the Detroit area. And I learned pretty quickly that just wasn't going to be for me. That's initially why I went. But when I started doing the interviews, they were telling me about how they live their lives in basically 6-minute increments, billing increments.
Oh, really?
And
Okay.
they keep track of their time in 6-minute increments. And I said, I don't know if that's the kind of pace that I'm personally looking for.
Yeah.
So I started looking elsewhere. And that's when I started considering teaching. When I applied initially, I applied to just go back to the Mid-Michigan Police Academy, where I was a recruit at one time. And I took on a really low stakes part-time police academy instructor role and just kind of built from there.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. That really, it sticks with me. You saying, living your life in 6-minute billing increments. And, I've had opportunity to see how, work with consultants, work with attorneys, and they're on that billing cycle. And you're right. I don't know how they do it.
Yeah.
I don't know how you keep track of it. That seems like a full-time job in itself.
Sure.
And then getting out what you need to get out in those short time increments. I guess that explains why a lot of attorneys are very short in how they speak.
Sure.
Okay, so you decide at some point that you want to stay in law enforcement, but you discover that teaching is really your forte. What is it about teaching that you appreciate?
Well, I absolutely love connecting with students and recruits. And I should mention this too. I taught in Lansing's criminal justice program, and I still teach in Lake Michigan College's criminal justice program also. So
Okay.
I run the police academy one session over the summer, but in the fall and the spring, I'm still teaching traditional college classes. So your intro to criminal justice, juvenile delinquency, those sorts of courses. And connecting with the students is absolutely the best part of my job, being in there and being able to get to know them and work them through their own career paths and questions and things like that. And the same thing over the summer with the police academy. It was such a pleasure to get to know all of those recruits and see them off to their departments. It's just such an honor.
For those who are not aware, can you give us a little bit of the origin story on how the police academy got resurrected? And maybe even what its past was, just briefly, at LMC.
Yeah, absolutely. So the police academy hadn't run a session at Lake Michigan College since 1982. So I basically had to rebuild it from scratch. And in fall of 2019, when I was hired at Lake Michigan College, even during my first interview with Dr. Ken Flowers, who was dean at the time, our conversation turned pretty quickly to, is there a market for a police academy at Lake Michigan College? The closest one currently at that time was KVCC, which is about 45 minutes to an hour down the road, depending on which part of the county you're coming from. And so we did start discussing it, but I also knew that it was something that I couldn't just build overnight.
Yeah.
So I've been at LMC for 5 years, and the first 2 to 3 years were just building a foundation for it, developing relationships with the college, developing relationships with the local law enforcement community, really deciding, is there a need and a want for the academy to come back? And the overwhelming want and need were yes. So the last couple of years, I've spent my time building it, and that was an enormous project, probably the biggest project I will ever take on in my career, I would imagine.
Yeah. What does that look like?
Yeah, it's everything. Before I could do anything, I had to get permission from the state. So the Michigan Commission on Law Enforcement standards, which MCOLs for short is what I'll call them because it's a mouthful. I had to get their permission. And so it started with developing a survey. And I sent that survey out to the local law enforcement community. And that survey just touched on, do we want this here? Do we need this here? From there, the overwhelming answer, like I said, was yes. And I presented that information to MCOLs. So I reached out to them. I actually reached out to them long before I submitted a proposal. I reached out to our local field representative and asked her to start attending our advisory committee meetings at the college because I told her that at some point I'd like to start an academy. And she graciously started attending the advisory committee meetings, and she helped me right along with the process until we got to the point that I was ready to actually submit a written proposal to MCOLS. I did that about 2 years ago. I submitted a proposal outlining all of those wants and needs for an academy, and had to go to an official MCOLS meeting about 6 months later and give an oral proposal as well. And fortunately, I think there are 22 or 23 MCOLS commissioners, and we received a unanimous yes vote to start an academy.
That's great. That's fantastic. So you basically you brought this proposal forward, and with the support of LMC, they said, "Yeah, let's do it. Let's see if we can do it." And you did.
Yeah. And it was, like I said, it was a big project.
Were there any road bumps or speed bumps along the way?
I kept waiting for them to come.
Knock on wood.
Yeah, knock on wood, especially running the first session of the academy. That's where I was really nervous because, again, we hadn't run an academy in 40 some years. So I just kept waiting for them to happen. And certainly there were little ones, but we never ran into any big issues. And it was fantastic.
What is, for me and others who don't know, what does it take to set up a police academy? What's involved in like the training? What's the curriculum?
Yeah, so I had to hire about 50 to 60 instructors to make sure that we met all of the training needs.
Wait a sec, 50 to 60 instructors.
Yes.
That what do you term an instructor?
So an instructor, you should understand too, that the state sets our curriculum.
Okay.
So we don't choose what we teach. We can add to it, certainly, but we have to meet the minimum standards, which cover 615 hours of training over a minimum of 16 weeks.
Yeah.
And so those areas touch on everything. There's skill areas such as driving and firearms and physical fitness and defensive tactics and subject control. And then there's all of the academic curriculum, the legal portion, there's diversity training, there's mental health training. There's so much that goes into it. So I had to hire instructors to meet all of those different pieces of curriculum.
Yeah. Wow. So 50 to 60 instructors versed in all those different areas. How much interaction is there between the police academy? What do you call them?
Recruits.
Between the recruits and the instructors. Do they see these people like every day, every week?
It depends on which instructor we're talking about.
Okay.
Some they certainly see more than others. Some of the instructors are coming in for 80 to 100 hours, and some of them come in for 4 hours and then leave and never come back. So it totally depends on which ones we're talking about.
Yeah. Okay. And so, sorry, we're talking with Brad Byerle. He's the director of the police academy at Lake Michigan College. They just graduated their first group of recruits earlier this summer. And you're holding sessions now in the summertime only.
Yes.
And is there a plan? I'm probably jumping around here. Sorry about that. Is there a plan to hold them in more than just summertime?
There may be eventually. We committed for the first couple of years to running our academy over the summer only. That was mostly my idea. I wanted to run a summer academy because it does not compete directly with KVCC down the road. They run their academy in the fall and the spring. So we wanted to hit that summertime where they're off. And we also only wanted to start running one session per year because we didn't want to bite off more than we could chew. We wanted to make sure that we got everything right and we had time to debrief after the academy ended and make sure that we corrected anything that needed correcting, made sure that we had all of the right equipment, all of the right instructors in place. Do it again this coming summer, and then maybe we're open for discussion to expanding from there.
All right. So just to go back to the chronological, you arrived in Southwest Michigan. You're teaching, what did we call it? Criminal justice
classes.
Criminal justice classes, and then you go to MCOLS and say, "Hey, we want to start a program for our police academy. We want to restart the police academy here." You get approval from MCOLS. What does that feel like?
It felt amazing. I still remember today walking out of that meeting, attending the meeting with me were Dr. Ken Flowers, who was provost of the college at the time. He was promoted from dean to provost. And also Director Dan McGinnis came with me from the city of Benton Harbor to show support for the academy. And I just remember walking out of there saying, I can't believe we just received a unanimous vote to start it, but here we are.
That's great. So then you come back to the college and say, okay, we got approval. Let's go. What's next?
Yeah, so a lot of thank yous were in order. I had to thank Dr. Trevor Kubatsky and our board of trustees for approving the program to begin with. And then it was all hands on deck. Let's get it going. So we had to. It really touched almost every area of the college in some way. We had to market the program. I had to work with our facilities department. We restructured a couple of our classrooms and turned them into our police academy classroom and then a lab area too. I had to work with our registrar to turn this program into academic credit. We also offer 27 credits of academic credit for completion of the program. Like I said, it really touched almost every area in some way. Human resources was a big area. Obviously, I just said we had to hire between 50 and 60 instructors. So they worked hard for me leading up to that first session.
Okay. We're talking with Brad Byerle. He's the director of the Police Academy, and we're going to come back in just a couple of minutes here. We've got a couple of commercials on the air right now, and then we're going to get the Bloomberg Market Minute, and then we'll come back with ABC News, a check of weather, our local news from the WSJM newsroom. Right now it's 7:26. We're continuing with the WSJM morning show, and let's see, checking the live stream real quick. We have a couple of good mornings there, one from me and one from Bill. So if you have any questions or comments, please weigh in on the and we've got some thumbs up too on the video live stream, at least on Facebook. If you have any questions or comments for Brad, please just put them in the comments section of our video live stream. As you're thinking about marketing it and putting it out to the different law enforcement agencies that you'd already been in touch with to survey them of, is there a need here? What was their response when you said, okay, now we need signups?
Yeah, so that is probably for me the part that I was worried about the most, because that is the part that became out of my control.
Butts and seats.
Yeah. So on both ends, actually, making sure that I had enough folks willing to come in and work at the academy as instructors, and enough departments willing to send their recruits to the first academy, because obviously they don't really know what they're getting themselves into. We haven't run a session, so finding enough departments to put faith in us that we're going to do it right the first time around.
Wow. Okay. We're going to talk about high anxiety.
Sure.
All right. We'll talk more about that. We'll talk about a little bit about the curriculum and perhaps how the curriculum has evolved in the last 20, 40 years since LMC had a police academy. So we'll talk about that and more with Brad Byerle. We've got to check in on news. Got the Bloomberg Market Minute. Let's join that in progress right here on the WSJM Morning Show.
New trips, but left out were low-cost carriers Spirit, JetBlue, and Frontier. Many of Starbucks baristas say the chain has a staffing problem. Just a third of the company's workers who responded to a survey said Starbucks consistently has sufficient staffing. The poll was done in April and shared internally at Starbucks in July. And if you visited a Disney theme park, you know the lines can be long, but soon Disney will start testing a new pass that allows people to skip the lines. Disney said the $400 Lightning Lane Premier Pass will be available in limited quantities. The new passes will be rolled out at theme parks in Southern California and Florida starting next week. Gina Cervetti, Bloomberg Radio.
The Morning Show with Ken and Friends on 94.9 WSJM.
Thanks again for joining us on the WSJM Morning Show. I'm Ken Lundberg. It is, what are we, Thursday already. Thursday, and it is the WSJM Morning Show. I'm Ken Lundberg. I already mentioned that. We do have a freeze warning in effect until 9 o'clock this morning. The forecast for today does call for sunny skies and a high around 63 degrees. South winds 5 to 10 miles per hour. Tonight's forecast clear, some patchy frost, low around 38, south winds 5 miles per hour. And then Friday, sunny skies, high around 67 degrees, south winds 5 to 10 miles per hour. We're going to check in with the ABC News in just a moment, but I did want to mention again that we are continuing our interview with Brad Byerle. He's the director of the Police Academy at Lake Michigan College. And one of the things that we were talking about a moment ago is the curriculum that they are following and that they have introduced, and how I have some questions about how that's evolved. So we'll talk about that in just a couple of minutes. But also, Brad, you why don't you put a plug in now for some of the social media, because one of the things that you talk about is making sure the word is getting out there, that people are aware of what's there. So give a plug for social media. How can people learn more information about what you're doing out there with the Police Academy at
absolutely.
LMC?
So at LMC's traditional website, we have all of our information about the Police Academy to begin with. Our application is posted there, etc. But we also have a Facebook account, Lake Michigan College Police Academy. You can search it and follow us. That's where we do a number of things. We'll post things like application deadlines and when applications become available for recruits. And we also post all sorts of photos during the academy. Here's what we have going on. We don't want to hide anything. We're showing absolutely what we're doing out there on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah, and I mean, what's the reaction that you're getting so far from people?
All positive.
Yeah.
I cannot tell you. I said it in my graduation speech too. The outpouring of thank yous for starting this program and good jobs that I've received. I just can't thank the community as a whole enough for the positive support that we've received.
That's great. No, we appreciate what you're doing out there, and it was exciting to learn that the Police Academy was going to be happening at LMC, and then it was also exciting to see and follow and then understand the graduation of the first round of recruits, and then to come out and see what how you're putting it all together. One of the things that you also mentioned is community partners, and it's not just LMC that is making this possible.
Yeah, so I said this in my graduation speech too. It takes a village.
Yeah.
So I already hinted to the 50 to 60 instructors, but even with our facilities, we couldn't do it on our own. We have to do things that the college isn't equipped for. We have to shoot firearms, we have to drive fast, etc. And so we had to make community partnerships to make that happen. We used Coloma Rod and Gun Club for 2 weeks during the summer, where they closed everything down and we rented their space for 2 weeks. We wouldn't have been able to run an academy without that partnership.
Right. Yeah.
And then we used Andrews University's Air Park for high-speed driving. And we also asked the Berrien Orinoco Fire Department to come out and lay water down on that track for us so that we could work on skid training with those vehicles. And
Skid training. That sounds like a lot of fun.
Yeah, absolutely. So a lot of the things that we do are fun, actually.
Okay. Where are you getting the vehicles when you do that sort of training?
More community partnerships.
Okay.
So we worked with the Berrien County Sheriff's Office, Sheriff Chuck Height, and then we also worked with the City of St. Joe and Director Steve Newbecker. Both of them were willing to lease vehicles to us for a specific amount of time during the academy to let us accomplish that drive training. And again, wouldn't have been able to do that without those partnerships.
Okay. We're talking with Brad Byerle. He's the director of the Police Academy at Lake Michigan College. They just ran their first group of recruits through this last summer, and they're getting ready for next summer as well. And we'll talk a little bit about the curriculum and some of the evolution of that curriculum over the years and what it looks like when you are interested in taking that course at the Police Academy. So that's coming up. We'll have more of that interview in just a moment. Right now, we're going to check in with ABC News.
The Michigan News Network.
Michigan.
I'm Beth Fisher. Put it in the trash. That's what a spokesperson for the Catholic Diocese of Grand Rapids says you should do if you receive a newspaper.
All right, so Brad, this is the part of the show where Ken gets to figure out what happened wrong in the computer. I was supposed to put on ABC News, and I'm not sure why that didn't play. Here, let's go there, and maybe that'll play that next. So we'll play that, change that. Sorry, for those of you on the video live stream, if this is incredibly boring, I apologize to you, but I'm looking at my computer, and I hit the wrong thing, so I started it. And now it's cascaded to, I'm trying to get it back to the right thing. We'll see if that works. Anyway, good discussion. How many recruits again did you graduate?
We started with 16 and graduated 14.
Okay.
There's always, almost always, some attrition in police academies. Yeah. We lost one recruit after about 3 weeks, just because he decided, it
wasn't for him.
Yeah. And I said right away, I would rather see that right up front than 2 or 3 years down the road.
Sure.
So I have to understand as a director that is going to happen.
Is there a typical profile of people who are fit, are the right fit for law enforcement?
I think that that's a really tough question, because really to be a law enforcement officer is almost like a calling for someone. It is certainly not for everyone.
Yeah.
And it's hard to pick one profile for that. I think it's just someone who wants to serve the public, and just has that calling.
Yeah. I mean, when you say that when I say the right fit, I mean, what are some of the challenges that you deal with? I mean, it seems like there are some pretty obvious ones that if you're in law enforcement, you're going to see a lot of things that probably not a lot of people want to see.
Yeah, absolutely. And you have to be mentally strong enough to
Yeah.
do that and move forward. And we stress that in the police academy. We take recruits and we do push them to their limits at times to make sure that they can handle those things.
Okay. Oh, you want to try that now? See if I can handle it? No. All right. I don't want that. We'll come back. We'll continue this conversation in just a minute. I think I got the computer back on track here. So we're going to finish up ABC News. I'm going to come back with some local news. That's just in just a moment right here on WSJM.
Los Angeles Archdiocese making another large payment to victims of sexual abuse by the clergy. The $880 million settlement payment comes against decades of allegations, and 3 people died. 4 were seriously hurt when a bridge being prepared for demolition collapsed in Simpson County, Mississippi. This is ABC News.
WSJM News Now. Team coverage from the WSJM Newsroom on News Talk Sports 94.9 WSJM.
7:36. It's the WSJM Morning Show. I'm Ken Lundberg. We'll continue our conversation with Brad Byerle, director of the Police Academy at Lake Michigan College, in just a moment. 33 degrees in South Haven right now, 33 in Buchanan, and 38 degrees in New Buffalo. It's 40 degrees in Benton Harbor and 44 in St. Joseph. There is a freeze warning in effect for our region until about 9 o'clock this morning. Today's forecast does call for sunny skies, a high around 63, south winds 5 to 10. Tonight's forecast clear, and again, a chance of patchy frost, a low around 38 degrees. Some of the news that we're following from the WSJM newsroom. In case you missed it, Michigan's governor was in our area yesterday for an election-related visit. Governor Gretchen Whitmer was in St. Joseph at Forte Coffee on Niles Avenue. She and Wisconsin Governor Tony Evers brought the Greyhound-sized bus, Harris Walls bus, and into town and met with State Representative Joey Andrews and other local Democrats for an invite-only chat. This is part of the National Democrat Committee's Blue Wall bus tour. They kicked off on Monday across key battleground states like Michigan. After the brief photo op, the tour went on to Kalamazoo. Other news, we told you yesterday about more than 500,000 Michiganders have already cast their absentee ballots for the upcoming election. That number is now about 760,000 people have returned their absentee ballots, and we still have just under 3 weeks from Election Day. At that time, Secretary of State Jocelyn Benson has now unveiled an online dashboard providing real-time statistics about voter turnout, trends, and registrations. Benson says the data is intended in part to combat disinformation about the voting process. So we'll tell you more about that coming up at 8 o'clock. And then also in other news, at Dickinson Park, public restrooms will soon be installed. Well, they'll start construction on it next year. The St. Joseph City Commission has approved a motion to move that project forward. St. Joseph Public Works Director Greg Grothaus tells us the work comes as a result of the city's 50-year lease agreement with the St. Joseph Public Schools, so the high school baseball team can play at the park. They'll also install a playground and some restrooms that both the players and people who use the playground can use. So all that and more is coming up at 8 o'clock this morning during our WSJM News. We're going to continue our interview talking about the Police Academy at Lake Michigan College. That comes up in just a moment right here. We're continuing it on the video live stream. You can hear it on the radio as well in just a few minutes right after sports from Dave Wolf.
The biggest offseason move in Major League Baseball in terms of money.
All right. Thanks again for joining us on the video live stream. Some comments have come in. Let's see. Bernice Mason. Hey, Bernice. Extremely active this morning, giving us a lot of comments. She says, good morning, Ken and friends. Let's see. Happy Thursday. God bless. Yes, it takes a village. Skid training. That got Bernice going. So thank you. Appreciate it. And then she also gave me a pass for having the computer issues. So thank you. Thank you for that, Bernice. One of the things that I wondered about, now, when did you first go to the police academy yourself for training?
I went through the police academy in 2005.
Okay, so 2005. And let's see, LMC had their academy last in like 1982.
1982.
1982. All right. So 1982, they have their academy. You have your academy at 2005. We're now at 2024. How has law enforcement evolved in that period of time?
Yeah, in so many different ways. I guess I'll start with the recruitment and retention piece.
Right.
When I applied at the sheriff's department in 2004, actually, before I had gone to the academy, I was one of about 80 applicants for 3 open positions. And now I think you're lucky to get about 3 applicants for 3 open positions.
Wow.
So things have certainly changed on that end. Many more.
And a lot of that has been societal shifts.
Yeah.
Attention paid to certain law enforcement practices, and how has that? I mean, when the recruits come in, what do they have a mindset of what they expect to happen?
Yeah, I think that the recruits that we are getting are still fully prepared and understand what they're getting themselves into. I think there's just much less of them than there used to be.
Okay.
So departments are having to shift in how they recruit folks.
Okay.
Many more departments are having to send or pre-employ a recruit and send them to the academy versus the past practice of recruits would put themselves through the academy and then go find a job afterwards. So that has certainly changed. And then obviously curriculum has evolved over time as well. The most recent one is we just added, or the state just added, MCOLS just added 20 hours of mental health training.
Okay.
There used to be a small 3-hour block. And what I mean by mental health training is how to respond to someone that is going through a mental health crisis.
Okay.
Their law enforcement for a long time was very limited in that amount of training unless they went and received training as in-service training beyond the basic police academy training. Basic police academy training used to be just a small 3-hour block of that, and MCOLS just expanded it to 20 hours. So in that 20 hours, the recruits go through a 4-hour block of online pre-training through MyTrain website, and then they have a full 8-hour day of in the classroom training. And that training, the state requires to be co-taught actually by a mental health professional and a first responder. So we're fortunate enough to have a couple of really good trainers in our area. Dr. Harvey Burnett, who's also chief of police down in Buchanan, is a licensed psychologist. So he took that mental health piece for us. And then Deputy Vanessa Williams took the first responder piece for us. She had already served as a mental health trainer for other academies and in-service training around our area. So that was co-taught for 8 hours in the classroom. And then the second day of it, 8 additional hours, was scenario-based training where the state brought in actors, role players, and our recruits had to actually work through how to solve a mental health crisis without just picking someone up and taking them to jail.
Yeah. And we hear a lot about that mental health being a missing component unless it's deliberate in law enforcement, whether that's the actual when an incident is happening or when somebody's incarcerated, getting the mental health treatment that is determined that they need. Here in Michigan, we have a lack of that as well. And so I'll be interested to understand when you went through it in that 3-hour block training, that mental health training, did that prepare you for what you were experiencing out on the streets? Hold that thought, because I've got to get us back here on the radio. We're going to answer that question in just a moment right here on the WSJM Morning Show.
Open to both members and non-members, and you can contact Tara at Renaissance Athletic Club or stop by the Kids Club to get more information about this. And if you want to check out all the cool things that they have to offer, racbh.com, or stop by and see them at Renaissance Athletic Club, 501 Graham Avenue in Benton Harbor.
A frosty start here this morning, a few patches of fog as well, but otherwise it's going to be a sunny day. And after the cold morning, we do end up warming up. We'll be around 60 this afternoon. Patchy frost again possible tonight. We'll drop down to 38. And tomorrow, sunny skies, high temperatures around 65. We should be up around 70 this weekend. I'm Chief Meteorologist Carrie Peugeot.
The Morning Show with Ken and Friends on 94.9 WSJM.
And thank you so much for joining us on the WSJM Morning Show. I'm Ken Lundberg. It's Thursday. Happy Thursday, 17th of October. And I told you to get used to, if for those of you on the video live stream, I told you to get used to me wearing a cardigan because, number one, I love cardigans because they just slip on, slip off. And number two, it keeps the chill off for mornings like this. It's kind of chilly out there this morning. And unfortunately, I had to let Brad Byerle, the director of the police academy, wait outside for much longer than I wanted to this morning as he was waiting to get let into the studios. And he's got a short sleeve shirt on. So
it's okay. I can handle it.
You can handle it. You like the cold weather. All right. We were talking just a moment ago about some of the ways law enforcement training has evolved over the last couple of decades. LMC hasn't had a police academy since 1982 until you graduated recruits this summer. So congratulations on that. But in that period of time, law enforcement is probably perceived a lot differently. And one of the things you were talking about is that mental health element, whether it's somebody having a mental health crisis or helping people get treatment afterwards in their incarceration. I assume with the police academy, you're more looking at it from a frontline perspective, but how has that evolved from the time that you were a police recruit to now, to what you're teaching other recruits?
Yeah, like I said, it was very minimal training back in 2005 when I went through the academy. It was a 3-hour block. And it was still good training, but it was minimal training. I think this new expanded training that the state has added, I mean, when you go from 3 hours to 20 hours and you include in that 20 hours, 8 hours of scenario-based training, it's so much more effective. The state is really focusing on adding more scenario-based training to the curriculum, and I think that's where recruits learn the most.
Explain maybe what is a scenario-based training event?
So it's different than traditional classroom training, obviously. So traditional classroom training, you're learning the laws, you're learning how to patrol effectively, etc. But scenario-based training is where the recruits have to go out and actually apply those things. We bring in role players. Most of those role players are either law enforcement or former law enforcement that come in and act out scenarios. And we do full scenario nights where the recruits have to come in at 5 o'clock for a shift brief, and then they get paired with field training officers. Another thing that I'd like to throw out there that I think our academy does a little bit differently than some is I request that the police departments that send recruits to our academy volunteer to come in on those scenario nights and actually work with their own recruits through those scenarios and evaluate their own recruits.
And why do you do that?
Well, I think it's important that they're involved in the recruits training early on in the process. Many departments are forced to just send their police recruits to an academy and then hope that they're trained well, and they get them back after 16 weeks and put them through the field training process, which is an additional 3 or 4 months. With our academy, we're trying to bring the departments in and involve them in the recruits training earlier on so they can see the progression from early on in the academy to the end of the academy. So I request that they send field training officers to do that evaluation. And all of the departments were all in on that. So getting back to the scenario-based training itself, we bring in those role players and the recruits have to respond to about 6 or 7 calls per evening. And we do that 2 or 3 times throughout the academy. And what we're trying to do is simulate real life police work. You come in for a shift brief, you take some calls, and those calls vary. So you get about 20 to 25 minutes to respond to one call, and then you have to move on to the next, and you never know what you're going to get. So very similar to police work. And then at the very end of that scenario-based training, all the recruits come back into the classroom. So do the actors, so do the field training officers. And we debrief the situations on the spot right there. And I think that recruits learn so much more that way because it's one thing to take a test with paper and pencil or on the computer these days. It's a whole different thing to actually apply that information in a real life setting.
Yeah. Did they struggle with it?
Initially, yeah, which is to be expected. What we want to see is them struggle in the beginning because we know they're going to, but we want to see that progression so that they look like more of a seasoned officer by the time they leave the academy in that last set of scenarios.
Yeah. What are the throughout the entire period that they're in training before they graduate? What are some of the big challenges for the recruits?
There are so many.
Yeah?
Yeah, going through the police academy is difficult. I won't sugarcoat that. They are, I think, honestly, one of the most difficult things is just the fact that they are there all the time. And so was I. We were there probably 50 to 60 hours a week most weeks. So it's very different than traditional classes where you walk in for an hour and a half a day and walk back out and you're done.
Yeah.
They are there with us all the time. And that is mentally taxing for sure. And then next is we physically challenge them. So they are usually up at 5 or 6 o'clock in the morning doing one of two things. They're either doing an hour or two of physical fitness, or they're doing 4 hours of defensive tactics. And neither one is physically challenging at 5 or 6 o'clock in the morning.
That's excellent. Do you want to talk about how you start on day one?
Yeah, sure. So
unless you want to, don't reveal secrets.
No, that's okay.
Okay.
That's okay.
All right.
Day one, honestly, is mostly a day of just introduction. So the way that I run things, I always start on a Monday, or will always start on a Monday. But on the Friday before that, all of the recruits come in. I have them sign off on some paperwork, and I issue them their uniform so that they can come in on day one on that Monday, fully prepared and looking like a police academy recruit right away. And from there, they do learn for about the first hour or so of the day just what the expectations are. I actually don't let them into the classroom for the first hour. They have to stand out in the hallway, and they learn to stand at attention and make some basic facing movements. Police work is paramilitary, and we don't have them march all over campus, but I do have them line up for a uniform inspection every day, and they do march into the classroom. They stand at attention in the classroom. Once they're in there, we do the Pledge of Allegiance, and then they're allowed to sit down.
Nice.
And then we start the day. So that first day, the first hour of it or so, is just getting them prepared for all of that. And then after that, they go through, we bring in our MCOLS field representative, and he sits down with them for a couple hours and talks about what the state's expectations are. They go on break, come back, and then we work through my entire Police Academy Recruit Handbook, which is fairly thick, and go over all of the rules and regulations of the academy so that they know right up front what all of our expectations are. And then they end the day with some physical fitness.
Okay. All right. Physical. You giggle as you say that. Some physical fitness. You make them run around like
we do, but I run with them.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, you look like you're in pretty good shape. So, all right. Good stuff. We will continue this interview. We'll wrap it up here in a couple of minutes. We're talking with Brad Byerle. He's with Lake Michigan College. He's the director of the Police Academy there. They just graduated their first round of recruits this past summer. They're going to set up for another class. They also teach criminal justice in the off season. So just some light things for folks to think about.
Sure.
We'll bring that back in just a moment right here on the WSJM Morning Show.
To everything, there's a season, and soon the seasons will change.
And lest I forget to say, one of the things that I wanted to express is thank you so much for doing what you do. We really appreciate you training the next round of law enforcement officers. We appreciate law enforcement officers because, I mean, they literally change lives. They literally save lives every day. And so, I mean, the old saying is I believe to be very true. When emergencies break out, a lot of people are running that way. Law enforcement and first responders have to run toward it.
Yes.
Toward it.
Yeah.
So thank you for preparing our young people for that. What's the average age of the recruits you had this last time around?
Young. Yeah, they're getting younger and younger. So MCOLS used to have a requirement that recruits be at least 21 years old. And they reduced that requirement down to 18 years old. And I think part of the thought process behind that, I can't speak for the state, but I do think that part of the thought process behind that is we need to expand the recruit pool because they're just not getting enough. And so the minimum age now is 18, and some departments are still adjusting their policies. Even a lot of departments still have a policy that says you must be 21 years old to work for our department as a law enforcement officer. And they can certainly have that policy, but they no longer are required to have that policy because of the new state changes. So yeah, they were young. I think we had right around 5 recruits who were under the age of 21. And I will say that some recruits at that age are fully ready. I think one of our best recruits who received at graduation the M. Cole's Outstanding Performance Award was only 20 years old. So he was fully prepared, but I can't say that every recruit under 21 years old is. You know, recruits at that age have to take a hard look and say, do I have the life experience, the confidence, et cetera, necessary for this job right now, or should I wait a little bit?
Did you have the male female breakdown you wanted?
I would have liked a few more female officers.
Yeah.
We had 1 female recruit.
Okay.
So of the 16 that started, we had 15 males and 1 female. I would like to expand that, but I also really, as the director, don't have much control over that. I have to take whatever the departments are sending me, and that's what we got the first time around.
Yeah. And we're talking with Brad Byerle. He's the director of the Police Academy at Lake Michigan College. The and the room transformation that you've had there at Lake Michigan College, those rooms, those are only used for the police academy, right?
Yes.
And they basically look like you would expect a police academy classroom to look like.
Yeah.
Did you visit other police academies most recently before you started this one?
I did. So obviously I worked for Mid-Michigan for a while, so I knew what that looked like. But I also went out to Kellogg Community College and worked with the director out there. I went up to West Shore Community College in Ludington and worked with the director up there. So those 2 I visited as well. And then probably about 2 or 3 years ago, I went up to Ferris State and took a look at theirs as well. So yeah, I was familiar with what other academies looked like before we set ours up.
Okay. We're going to conclude this interview in just a couple of minutes. We're listening to the WSJM morning show here on WSJM at 7:56. So just 4 minutes before 8 o'clock, we'll have ABC News, our local news from the WSJM newsroom, sports, and a whole lot more. Stay tuned. We're going to get back to this interview in just a moment.
Control spending that is fueling our national debt and inflation. On November 5th, I'm asking for your vote because I will never stop fighting to make Southwest Michigan an even better place to live, work, and raise a family. I'm Bill Huizenga, candidate for Congress, and I approve this message. Paid for by Huizenga for Congress.
The Morning Show with Ken Lundberg on WSJM.
7:57 now, just 3 minutes before 8 o'clock. I'm Ken Lundberg. Thank you for joining us during the WSJM morning show. We've got a couple minutes here left with Brad Byerle. Brad Byerle, he's the director of the Police Academy at Lake Michigan College. And we were talking on the video live stream, which, by the way, if you miss any portion of that, just go back to Facebook or YouTube and watch the video archive of it. We have the whole interview there unedited. The one of the things we were talking about is you visited other academies to see what they're doing most recently. You set the academy up at Lake Michigan College. You got the first crew through. Congratulations on that. What are you looking for as you get ready for the next round of recruits? What are you doing? What are you doing to prepare?
Yeah, so we're currently with our instructors debriefing, especially the big skilled areas. I'm bringing all of our instructors in, and we're talking about what went well, what needs to improve, et cetera. And we're gearing up to accept the next group of recruits. So we'll start accepting applications for that or reservations from departments in December. We'll continue accepting those recruits all the way up through basically the middle of April is about as late as they can send them to us. And from there, we just are trying to fill the academy. So we're expanding the number of recruits that we're taking. I said 20 for the first round. We're bumping that number up to 24. So not a significant bump, but small steps. And we're going to start working on developing, we did this last year too, a hiring fair where we're going to bring in local law enforcement agencies who need to hire recruits and send them to our next academy and try to pair them with the public and my current criminal justice students, anyone who wants to go into law enforcement. We're going to do that in probably either mid-December or early January and go from there.
Okay. And for more information and to find out the latest, where can people sign up for your social media?
Yeah, just go directly to Lake Michigan College Police Academy, search that, and we should be right there. Follow us. And like I said, our application for the academy is already up on our website at lakemichigancollege.edu.
Okay. And so you've got that Facebook presence. People can expect updates there. And again, just go to the website directly. You can find more information. Anyone can join.
Anyone can join as long as they're at least 18 years old and they meet the state's minimum requirements.
State's minimum requirements, which are all listed out there. All right. Well, thank you very much for joining us this morning. We appreciate you, Brad, and what you're doing at Lake Michigan College with the Police Academy.
Yeah, thank you.
Absolutely. It is 7:59. Forecast for today does call for sunny skies, high around 63 degrees. We're going to have south winds 5 to 10 miles per hour. Tonight's forecast, clear, patchy frost, low around 38, south winds 5 miles per hour. Tomorrow's going to be another sunny one. It's 8 o'clock.
From ABC News, I'm
Thank you very much for those of you on the video live stream for joining us. We really appreciate you. Any final words for our folks?
No, just thank you. Thanks for having me. Thanks to the community for being so supportive of our first session of the Police Academy. Thanks a lot.
And for any questions or for more information, just go to Lake Michigan College. You can find their Police Academy links there and sign up for their social media. They're going to be putting updates there and photos and all kinds of other fun stuff. I'm going to keep you to your word on the driving academy.
Okay.
Anything I can do to help.
See you next summer.
Maybe I can just be part of a scenario where I'm the screaming passenger going, "No, slow down."
More than welcome.
All right, fine. We'll come back. It's the WSJM morning show. We're going to end the video live stream. We're going to continue the morning show. We'll be back with the video live stream in just about 23 hours. All right. Thanks for joining us.